good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is William Michael Forbes. I want to welcome you to a morning message. I've had the Divine Collective hovering around me for several hours, from the time I started working out till just about now. And they wanted to bring forth a very simple message that's really important to understand. Because they're saying too many humans are struggling unnecessarily against things that aren't even real in their own minds. It is important that you learn to make a distinction between what is real and what is not real. When I asked them how, can people make that distinction a little easier, they said they have to remember nothing. And I said, what do you mean you have to remember nothing? They said, in remembering nothing, you surrender the false self. And when I asked them what they meant by the false self, they said the false self is that self that was created, manufactured by the conditions of your environment. Now, that false self can be either good or bad. It can be a collage of both. They said it's still a false self. It's not who you truly are. It's merely a device for acquiring information. That's all that false self is. It's an information repository. And that's all we're supposed to use it for, just to understand and know the way this physical dimension works. They said to me, every single human being was born in complete clarity of being. And to me, that means complete clarity of being means you know that you exist. You're conscious of your existence. You are aware of the life that is your life, that you feel the bliss that is you, and that you can operate from that, that all your acts, all your words, all your deeds come from a place of great reverence for the life that beats your heart and grows the trees and moves the planets, and that you become aware that you are one with that life and able to interact with it. They said to me, most humans tend to interact strictly with the physical dimension as if it is the only reality. And this is where a lot of pain and suffering comes from, because if you're trying to say you've got this infinite potential and it's just actually just your one finger, that'd be like saying, oh, try to move your whole life with just one finger being able to move. It would not be very comfortable. Saying you have so much more at your disposal to use and create with that doesn't require what you remember. And I said, well, what should people do about what they remember? Memory is how we remember what's hot, what's cold, what's up, what's down. They said, but you know these. Once you know these, you don't have to keep reminding yourself of them. You just utilize the knowledge you have. But things like good and evil, right and wrong, up and down, these comparative ideas in your mind tend to restrict your perception to finite areas. And I asked, well, this is sounding a little confusing to me. Is there any way to make this clear? And they said, yes, learn to quiet your thoughts. Practice quieting your thoughts. For when you learn to quiet your thoughts deliberately and intentionally, you become aware of something more than what you think you know. And in that awareness of more than you think you know, your being expands. Your awareness expands to broader conceptions, understandings, and feelings of what else there is that you are, can be, and can do beyond what has been established in your physical mind that says you are limited to that personality of that name or that body or that family or that country or that job. Learning to change the definitions of yourself by releasing the definitions you have of yourself will liberate you greatly from the conflict that may be raging on inside your own mind. But learn to understand that that conflict is between you and yourself, that you keep reflecting on something that limits you and you feel limited, and that is very uncomfortable. You cannot put 4 gallons of water in a 1-gallon container. It does not work. Eventually the container falls apart. The pressure of water can't be compressed. When I got them to explain a little more deeply about what that process is, how do we actually get this thing to be quiet? And they said, as all the masters do, learn to meditate, learn to quiet your body, learn to still your senses, to be undistracted, to become self-aware that you are still aware. at that point of stillness in your body and stillness in your mind, you begin to realize you still exist independent of them. From that perspective, you can begin to move into the stewardship of creating. And we say the stewardship of creating because this is what it is. You have a stewardship over this planet. Humanity as a whole has a stewardship over this planet. And as each of you comes into being that which you are, you can enable certain capabilities that will begin to alter your conditions and experiences in this physical dimension in the most wondrous ways, rather than the most painful ways, which you have been playing out over and over and over again for many, many, many thousands of years. But you are now in a time and a place of consciousness where you can rise above, far above anything, any conception that you have ever had of yourself, about your world. And from that perspective of perception, you can deliberately and intentionally alter time, space, and matter, just as easily as you can alter the movement of your hands or your legs, or the movement of your thoughts and your emotions. You must acquire this awareness again and begin to assert that power, that suffering is not the way you have to learn anymore. You can learn through creating. Stop learning through this simple tool of survival and start learning through the wondrous capability of your creative, wondrous imagination and consciousness. You are limitless without knowing you are limitless, but when you know this, you begin to impart the impossible and the unimaginable into this material world, and it becomes possible and imagined. And this is the truth of all your creative processes. Thank you. We don't interfere, but we do provide very clear, concise information that enables anybody who can listen and see and feel and know the opportunity to stand outside of the conventional into the wondrous, the beautiful, the gracious, the loving, the creative. And you have the opportunity as a species to create great love in this world. But first, you must restore that to yourself, not only in mind, but in body, to make the essential nature of yourself, which is infinite in its greatest, most fundamental truth, to make the infinite as effective through the finite in body, mind, soul, spirit, to have it all working together in harmony with love. It's very fascinating when you begin to communicate with these beings, and everybody's communicating with them on some level or another, and there are different beings on different levels. The divine, yes, they wanted to add, learn to become mindful, learn to breathe, learn to quiet your mind. For these words that we have said to you, and all that you listen to in these few minutes, have no real value or meaning until you know how to quiet this down and really hear and feel the transmissions, the vibrations of our unified consciousness working simultaneously for the most wondrous good of all. And yet there is no restriction on whether you should create good or evil, for you have limitless capability. But one experience from the finite perspective in which you exist now is more preferable than the other. We leave you now with this. Thank you. I'm going to look forward to replaying this back. There's just so much that is happening here. This ascension process on the planet is it's a natural, organic thing that's happening because of the intention and intent of creative intelligence. There are beings on this planet today, beings in the angelic realms, beings on multi-dimensions that are imparting their frequencies. Our frequencies are beginning to overlap with these dimensions now, and as a result, even the physical world, what you might see as turmoil, is going through great transformation, a movement towards love and away from fear, which is the truth about who you are. You are a being of love, light, and fear. And I want to wish all of you on that note a most wonderful, a joyful day, and much, much love. Bye for now.